Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, other dudes who didn't shave today, welcome to Muh Radio.
Hey everyone, welcome to Muh Radio. My name's Steve.
And I'm Chris.
Reese Wood.
And my question is, Chris, what about women that didn't shave today?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, love them stubbly legs.
Right? I mean, what? Oh, okay. Anyway.
I can finish my carpentry projects with their legs.
Oh, you sand off the edges real nice?
Yeah.
Yeah. I usually do that. I take a board and hold it up to my beard and, give it a nice little... No?
Actually, you and me, Reese, we just look kind of hungover. Steve looks full Viking.
Yeah. I decided not to shave at all, and I'll go back to professional Monday morning.
Yeah. This is my professional. I don't have really professional. I have full on...
If your profession is raping and pillaging,
there
there you go.
Besides the raping part, I guess I'm good for the pillaging.
Minus that.
Yeah, with everything that's going on in the world today and in the United States, let's just not say raping.
Hey, that sounds like a clever seg into our next subject.
I guess that's what we're going to talk about first. Is our
why not?
Our favorite subject that we seem to cover here on Muh Radio every week is the new allegations of sexual harassment and terribleness from everyone.
Well, the last time I supported a Democrat was Al Franken.
Oh.
He's in the news again. Actually, I think he's facing his second sexual allegations. It's not looking good for him.
Yeah.
I went out on social media right away after the first allegation. I said, hey, maybe it's a good time for a progressive like Al Franken to do something that nobody else has done. Maybe he should step down. Whatever he does after that is his business. But stepping down would have been the most progressive thing I would have thought he could have done at the time. Maybe recoup, come back in a year, maybe a presidential bid. But he can't do any of that if he keeps staying in there. And let's hope another allegation doesn't come up, because the second...
Well, I guess the way these things go is once the floodgates open, it usually is just everybody comes out. So if he's done anything, if he's even looked at a girl sideways, they're going to come out and be like, oh my God, he sexually harassed me. So yeah, he's probably done.
Yeah, his response was that it's been humbling. And
humbling?
It's been humbling.
It's been humbling.
Yes,
it's
humbling.
Very humbling.
Did I say that right? Yeah. I can't imagine being in his position, being on a USO tour with all these veterans around you, all these people who are actively serving our country, and you're there to entertain them.
Right.
And even remotely thinking that you would get away with any of this, especially at the time, you had to have thought, if you look back, maybe Al Franken was already considering his Senate bid at that time. So why would you do that? I mean, and now it's humbling.
It's very humbling.
Yes.
Well, I think I think these guys, they were getting away with it so much that they thought like,
And I think we need to go back a little further. Maybe there's some other names that have been coming up with these allegations that could kind of point that this has been an issue going on a little longer than just Al Franken.
Oh, yeah. Who's the guy that just recently from the Today Show?
Matt Lauer?
Mr. Matt Lauer, yeah. He's extremely glib.
Any former presidents?
Oh, yeah. George W.H. Bush was accused of sexual harassment, and not just once, not just twice, but like 20 times. And this wasn't 10 years ago. This wasn't 20 years ago. This wasn't 30 years ago. This was recent. While he's in his wheelchair, he puts his arm around a girl and then reaches under them and pets her behind.
Is that what you get for being the best president of our lifetime?
I guess. I don't know.
I'm not sure.
I feel like it's one of those like, he's just an old guy, he can do what he wants kind of thing.
It's like, is he senile, or is he playing the senile angle? You know
right?
What I'm saying?
Yeah, I think that's what he's doing. He's like, I'm an old guy. No one's gonna say anything if I touch this girl's behind. It's insane. That's what it is to me. It's extremely insane.
So I've done a lot of thinking about this, because on the surface it's an issue where I really don't care what these representatives do. Their ability to assault other people is a huge problem. But what is the biggest problem that you guys think this presents to us? I kind of think it's a consent thing. I think not only are they going to spend on trying to investigate this, but kind of points out the consent issue that a lot of our representatives might have, the perception of what consent really means. I go a little deep on that, but what do you guys think the biggest issue is with all these sexual allegations and some of our candidates
Well, I mean,
represent?
if you can kind of violate people's consent by proxy, which is their job, who's to say they can't do it in their personal life?
Yeah, that's a connection I was kind of
Well, I also wonder if this could end up being a boon to social justice warriors too. Because if you remember 5 or so years ago, it was really big, like, what is consent? And there's all these rapes on college campuses of girls getting drunk and passing out and having sex with guys and yada, 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 and what actual consent is. And now we're getting to a point where these guys are touching these women. And sometimes it goes farther than that, by the way. But let's just use that as an example. What George H.W. Bush was doing was touching these girls inappropriately, and that's without consent. So is that a crime? Should that be like punished? Like, what kind of punishment do you think that you should get from that? Because these guys, as far as I've seen, has anybody filed any actual like
reports?
Yeah, like is anybody getting arrested
anything
for this? As far as I've heard, no one.
Al Franken's response was an ethics investigation. And immediately I said, well, if he's calling for this, is there spending involved? And if there is, I'm not for that. And that's why I said maybe he should step down, because any move that you can make once you've been alleged to do something, unless you can prove that it's completely not a fact at all, which Franken could not do.
Right.
In this situation, it really does present the fact that we're going to be spending, we're going to be paying for this investigation. And you can look at some other representatives that have been in this spot, and there is spending involved with the investigations, and it's always on us.
Well, on both sides. I mean, you've heard about the hush fund, right?
Yeah. Like I said, though, do you think that these people should be actually arrested for this? I mean, or ticketed or some sort of punishment? Because I feel like if you violate someone, and I think if you sexually touch someone, and what I mean by is if you put your arm on their shoulder and you kind of give them a hug, that's not sexual harassment. But if you touch, a private part or a part of them that they don't want, or the hug lasts a little too long, maybe they should get a ticket, or and that might slow some of this stuff down.
Yeah.
I'm not one to like throw the law at everything all the time. Like, hey, make a law to make this illegal, because it gets into a gray zone, like what is and what isn't.
This is a good case for social capital.
Yeah.
If we didn't quantify everything into dollars, maybe we could address this differently and still have some kind of effect and impact on the person who is being accused.
Right.
But also offer some kind of solution to the person who has been the victim here.
Well, like
it's hard.
I don't know. Have you guys seen probably one of the creepiest videos on the internet recently on Facebook with Joe Biden?
Yes.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I'm like, okay, so first
There's
of all,
something weird about that.
There is, and I feel like something needs to be done about that. I don't know what, but I feel like I'm kind of glad he's not the vice president anymore.
Someone in the room just needs to call him out on it.
Yeah.
Period. Like, dude,
Like, I don't care
just
who you
one
are.
dude probably would have fixed
Like,
it.
if that was my kid, you're the father of what, three daughters, right?
Four
daughters.
yes.
Four daughters. What would you do if some dude was like playing with their hair and then touching their cheeks and like kind of putting their arm a little too close to certain parts? You'd probably be like going crazy.
I'd be doing my best to remove myself and my kids from that environment. And then I would probably do my best to notify the people that I know that mutually know this person to keep distance from them.
Hey,
They're
back
not
off,
good.
dude. Like,
But other than starting a confrontation, which there are so many options to be confrontational.
yeah.
But other than being confrontational, you have the option to leave. And that's pretty much your first peaceful solution.
But see, the thing is like this happened multiple times. This video shows probably 10 to 15 times of him doing this, because what he would do is he'd take pictures with the families of senators, like new senators that would come in, or representatives, one of the two. And every time they had a little daughter, he'd put his arm around the kid and like play with the kid's hair and touch them and like and then he'd lean in and he'd say like, what was it? He'd say, no boys until you're 30. He told that to all of them.
You know what? I have to point out how technology plays a role in this.
Yeah.
I think, what do you do in these circumstances? Well, first, let's figure out how we can prevent these things from happening more. First of all, if this is really true that Joe Biden was really being a creeper like this, now we have the video.
Yeah.
Whereas 20 years ago, we weren't able to keep up on those things. So we are really living in a time where these things are going to be more apparent. We're going to see who's who, especially if people are increasingly using their devices to document everything.
Right. And I feel, though, like in this situation that we have right now, where everybody's being called out on all their sexual harassment stuff, besides this one video on Facebook, how come no one's calling him out? How come there's no...
How come so long?
How come there's no investigation into what's going on? Because usually in those situations, he's not doing that because, like, oh, I have a chance. He's doing it because he wants to. So if he is a pedophile, I'm not saying he is, but if he is, then there's a chance that he's done something else greater than what they actually have caught him on video. So someone needs to investigate him. That's all I'm saying.
That's my issue with Al Franken and being a progressive. I'm not a fan of the progressives. For me, as a libertarian, a person on the opposite side of the progressive spectrum, I would say if Al Franken could do anything to really appeal back to me in any way, he could have done that. He could have been human. He could have he had 100-pound weight in front of him. He could have lifted that and said, you know what, this is a lot of weight to lift, but I'm going to lift it. I'll see you guys later. I got some personal work to do.
Well, and one of the other interesting parts of all of these allegations is, has any of these guys actually apologized? I think like one, maybe. Like
They've
that'd be
been
the first.
humbled.
That'd be the he's been humble. Like if I get accused of sexual harassment, if say I was a senator or something and they accused me of sexual harassment, whether I did it or didn't, I would apologize. I'd be like, I'm sorry if anything I have done has made you feel uncomfortable. And I will continue to make sure that I try to do better in that situation. Like, be humble. Like, don't say it's humbling if you're not being humble.
Yeah, I mean, even in like much smaller cases of times where I did something that rubbed someone the wrong way, even minor stuff, I'm like, oh, dude, I'm so sorry. I feel like a jerk now,
Exactly.
But we don't see that from them.
No. And that's the worst part to me is like, dude, apologize, man. Like, whether it's true or not, apologize. You can say you're innocent and still apologize.
Yeah, you're sorry for making them feel uncomfortable. I mean,
the Al Franken I knew would have actively, and I hate to use the word too much, but progressively gone after some kind of solution on this. He would have really actively done something. And he's been a complete politician on this, on his reaction to these allegations. And it really, it bums me out because I haven't been a fan of his politics. I was a fan of him as a comedic writer.
Yeah.
This really kind of seals the deal for me. I'm not going to be able to be a fan of his politics from here on out. In fact, in the last week, he did a follow-up on the Republican tax bill. As much as I wanted to hear what he was saying, all I could think while he was talking was, you're facing allegations right now, and you need to address that.
Right.
You can't go on with your representative career.
Yeah.
And he's having to eat quite a bit of crow now after the way he went after O'Reilly.
Oh, God, yeah.
Yes. Those were, in high school, those were some of my favorites. I read Lying Liars and the Lies That They Tell,
I read that
and
one
Rush
too.
Limbaugh is a big fat liar. Some of my favorites, and that was before I was politically aware of anything. I was a fan of his writing. And to see where it is today it's a real eye-opener with our representatives.
Yeah.
Let's see how much things keep getting shaken up. It's a real coincidence, too, that he's part of the, leading the Russian investigation, and this comes up.
Wait. Al Franken's leading the Russian investigation? Really?
You can head to YouTube. Al
And he's being
Franken
accused
just
of
2
sexual
weeks ago.
harassment at the same time?
2 weeks ago, Al Franken was very heatedly questioning in a hearing. YouTube it. I can't personally keep up on all this. A lot of theater.
Well,
for people.
like I said, conspiracy doesn't make you wonder if, hey,
Well, you wonder why Democrats or progressives might not believe libertarians or Republicans right now on their views on the tax, on anything, because of they see it that way. They see that maybe there may be a setup for not only Franken, but every time a Democrat faces some heat, maybe it's a setup.
Yeah.
And that's what all parties are doing. I mean, we've been doing that, right? Everybody's, hey, if we did something wrong, it was likely a setup. No one admits to anything ever, and that's how we get politics instead of representation.
But you see the silver lining, though. The stock just rose for us loyal husbands. Love you, pudding.
Yes.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh, man.
Funny but true. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Muh Radio. We are are going to switch gears here and talk about something that's near and dear to all our hearts. And one of those subjects that's...
Taters?
No, not taters.
Ferrets.
Not ferrets. God, everything with the taters and ferrets. Anyway, we're going to talk about net neutrality. The great catchphrase.
The biggest can of worms you can open these days.
Yeah, and what it means and how it works.
Can we even agree on the definition? That's a big part of the...
The interesting thing about net neutrality is the name in it of itself. Basically, it should be called, does the FCC have control over the internet or not? Because net neutrality means like, oh, it's neutral. Like, oh, no one's going to touch it. And if we get rid of net neutrality, then what we have is net war. Like what does that mean?
I don't know. For me, I'm keeping up with the crypto and blockchain stuff.
Right.
And the more I watch the stuff going on with the FCC, the more I'm wondering how long is it before all of this is irrelevant, before people are creating independent networks.
Thank you. That's what I keep saying, and no one wants to hear it.
It takes a couple routers, and we have ourselves what they call an independent network, something like that. But
well, that's like, you guys ever seen the show on HBO, Silicon Valley?
No, I have not.
I
Anyway,
passed it last night.
It's a good show, by the way. You guys should watch it. It's kind of funny. The main character in this last season decided what he wanted to do was create his own internet. And it's literally what you guys were talking about. How every cell phone, as long as you're logged into this network, you become part of the network. And it's independent of the actual internet. So it's its own internet, but it's based off of everybody's cell phones, and it's a lot of technical jargon I don't understand, but basically that's what it is. And it's not controlled by anyone. There's no one hub, there's no one set of servers.
No central,
yeah.
Yes. Yeah, there's something appealing about that idea.
And that's possible. And this is why we need to get rid of net neutrality, to bring it back to net neutrality.
Do we need to get rid of it?
Yes.
Or do we need to build our way out?
Well,
I said that a long time ago. But
with net neutrality, we can't build our way out, because now we have regulations. It should be called net regulations is what it should be called, not net neutrality, because that's what it is. Net neutrality sounds like, oh, it's free for everybody, but it's actually regulations. That's why a lot of these big, they won't tell you they want it, like Verizon and all these people are like, oh, no, we don't, we want net neutrality because we want the internet to be free. No, they want the internet because they can control it.
Right.
And that's the problem. And they're like, well, then you can't throttle, without net neutrality, you could throttle back Netflix. Okay, so like, let's see if I can explain it in a layman's terms first, and then we can kind of discuss it. So net neutrality means the FCC says that a internet provider cannot slow down the speed of another competitor. So like Verizon, you have Verizon on your cell. If you want to watch Netflix and Verizon's like, no, we don't want you to, they'll slow it down so there's no loading of Netflix so you can't watch Netflix. Well, net neutrality says they can't do that. Sounds like what you would want, right? Because you don't want companies blocking other companies from the internet.
Right.
But we have no history of that. Net neutrality only started 2 years ago, by the way, in 2015. Before that, we didn't have net neutrality. We just had the internet, and nobody screwed with it.
And you mean, I think the current FCC chair, I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah.
I didn't realize this, but he was appointed by our previous president.
Oh, really?
Barack
I thought
Obama,
oh, wow.
Did not know that, but in 2012, he was appointed by Barack Obama.
And that's Ajit Pai?
Yes. So, for
said
a
his
guy
name
who
right.
takes a lot of heat for he's doing something that is probably easy to get confused, which is going to cause a lot of public drama.
Yep.
And he's getting slumped right in there with all that Trump drama.
Yep. Yeah.
Unfortunate.
Now, the case the net neutrality people make, to be fair, is that there have been attempts to do that, but the FCC stopped them in the past. But I mean, if they could stop them without this whole 400 pages of regulations, why don't they just stay with that?
Well, Ajit Pai said the way it works now, or the way it would work if net neutrality was ended, was say Verizon wanted to stop Netflix, right? Verizon has to go to the FCC and say, this is why we're throttling back Netflix. And the FCC has to go, is that a valid reason? And a valid reason is it because we want HBO Now to stream faster than Netflix. That's not a valid reason. A valid reason would be, oh, their content is bad, or there's something evil with it. Some actual reason not to do it. But just to say it's because we don't want to in our business and we want to charge more for Netflix isn't a reason. So the FCC would say, no, you can't do that. And that's what we had before. We didn't have the regulation of the internet. We didn't need it. And now we have it's like regulating something just to regulate it because we wanted to.
It's a good time to bring up some of the stuff going on with Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. In the last week, Bitcoin itself went over $10,000 per
Oh
coin.
my God.
Right? Mind blower for everybody.
Whoa.
Wait until it gets to 1 million. At least they're saying that.
Yeah, at least McAfee said that.
McAfee said
Really?
that. Do you hear what he said he would do if it didn't? Google what he said he would do, but if it didn't reach 1 million. It's censored here, but it's FCC censored here. And we don't have any FCC censoring. It's that bad.
Wow. Now I really, okay, folks.
So-
you have homework. Go Google what he said about Bitcoin.
So talking about regulation, and if you look at this rise in Bitcoin in the last week, it's a pretty monumental jump. It wasn't that long ago. It was under $5,000. And I told a lot of people, I said, hey, I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of the year, by the end of 2017, it'll be 10,000. So we're a month ahead of what I thought.
Wow.
And so I won't be surprised to see it. I'm not going to speculate too much, but 20, 40, 50, maybe by the end of this year. And when it doesn't, we'll see. But that's what I'm thinking.
How does one invest into Bitcoin? Do you know? Like, where do you go buy a Bitcoin? Like
A coin or a cryptocurrency exchange like Coinbase. So Coinbase actually this last week, getting back to regulation, was basically asked by the IRS. This has been an ongoing thing, but it got down to about 14,000 customers for Coinbase will have to provide some of their information that would have been private is going to have to be handed over for an investigation. Basically, because of the first bubble, the first boom that hit Bitcoin a couple of years ago, I can't remember how much it went up, but it set off enough to regulators to kind of say, hey, some of these people aren't reporting on the gains. Now it's coming out 14,000 out of, I think it's probably 10 times that amount of people. So just a small portion of people really are getting looked at. If you were to prove that these people were cashing out later, you know, a big Bitcoin boom happens, right? And your $1,000 went up to $3,000. How does the IRS then investigate, and how would they properly tax the gains on that? Would they, like any other commodity or asset or anything that you can invest in, would they tax it similarly?
I would think.
The thing with cryptocurrencies is the privacy issue. You can make them private. You can save them offline in a hardware device and have it completely unavailable to anyone except for you. So when it becomes, you actually have 100% secure privacy over your whatever this is, your wealth. I don't know
So if
how.
you
Well,
had-
of course they couldn't have that, right?
How are they going to tax that?
So if you had, like, back in the day, you bought a Bitcoin for $100, because I think that's what they started out at, right? It was 100, and you took it and you put it on a private hard drive, your own hard drive, and you waited till today and you went and you sold it for $10,000. That's, $990 profit. How would the government tax that? Is what you're kind of.
There are
questioning.
ways. Coinbase offers ways to actually submit tax documentation, so they'll help you do that. But the question is, if you wanted to not work with the federal government, if you did not want to report this because you didn't feel it was their place, because they also don't understand the technology.
Right.
That's what it comes down to. The regulation, the federal regulation in place right now shows that the federal government does not understand the technology, but they will put legislation and regulation in place. They'll put regulation in place without understanding something.
Right.
And without moving on to the hemp issue, this is just like a lot of other issues that we see a lot of excessive regulation too soon, and it can be very damaging.
Right.
And we have a emerging technology here with the blockchain and with cryptocurrencies. We're already regulating it. We're already trying to shut it down. The question is, can they regulate it? If people wanted to keep their coins private, who's going to make them hand over the security key?
Yeah, that's the interesting part, because, well, I think that if you want to simplify the regulations and the taxing of a Bitcoin, it should be anytime you sell a Bitcoin for a profit. I mean, that just makes sense to me. So, like, kind of like a bond or anything else that you would buy, a stock. The dividends on a stock you have to pay taxes on, right? But you own that stock. It makes profit. Well, Bitcoin doesn't make you a profit. You don't get cash from a Bitcoin until after you sell it. So it's like buying let's say a collectible baseball card. You buy a collectible baseball card for $1,000. Its value goes up for whatever reason. You sell it for 10 grand. Boom. Now you have the actual profit.
The problem with cryptocurrencies is you can cash out in other things than federal money. And So they can't tax your cash out in rubles. They can't
That's fine.
tax
Then.
that.
The only time
But-
it should be cash taxed is when you convert it to U.S. dollars.
Right.
Because other than that, they shouldn't have any control over it. Because just because your computer's based here in the United
But
States.
you know they're gonna try.
Well, I know, but how else can you regulate something that
Maybe you can't.
That's
Maybe
what I'm
you
saying.
can't.
Like you can't regulate. So make it easy for people to pay their taxes because I guarantee 99% of the people who buy a Bitcoin trying to like make a profit off of it aren't going to care to pay their taxes. They'll just pay them because they'd rather do that than try to like figure out some sneaky way. Because it's mostly going to be dudes like me and you who like want to maybe try to get in on the Bitcoin thing. And I'm not going to try to figure out how to sell it in rubles. Like I wouldn't know what to do if I had a handful of rubles. I'd be like, can I get vodka?
Right.
What else would I do with it?
That's a good point. I mean, I personally
I say if this becomes like big business and you see Bitcoin go up and up and up,
Which it will.
you are going to see the pretense. They're going to try to fly this, that people are using Bitcoin to engage in terrorism. So they need to keep a closer eye on this.
Aren't they already kind of doing that? Because how people are using Bitcoin to buy drugs and stuff off the dark web. So off the Silk Road.
yes.
Yeah. So people were using Bitcoin to buy things off the Silk Road. And you could pretty much get anything you wanted off that. So my thing is there's always going to be a Silk Road. You can't really try to figure out a way to regulate it. And like you said with terrorism, like what do you do with that? Like can you actually like
Well, I'm saying
every
they'll-
Bitcoin
they'll-
has to be watched no matter what?
They will invoke the Patriot Act if they have to on this.
Well,
I will. I agree, Chris, to a point. I
do too.
completely agree that it could very likely go down that path. What I like about the ability for it to go down that path is the same thing I like about our current president. It puts everything on the line for discussion. We're going to have that discussion. We're going to talk about it. We're going to see it for what it is.
Yeah.
It's going to be used to show people that it can be an aggressor, a thing to use to scam people. But then it's also going to be shown how it benefits people. The question is, like with everything else, are people going to start to realize good from bad? And I mean, there's really no easy way to say it, but are people in their gut going to realize something's good, something's bad? We're not going to continue to let regulation be a fear thing. It almost provokes people to be more intelligent. And that's what I like about the technology and the ability for it to possibly face regulations. Let them propose regulation. We're going to have to go through those mental hoops and figure it out.
But hey, this might be the one thing that makes Republicans turn on the Patriot Act.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Wait, it's costing me money? What?
yeah, but are Republicans really big into Bitcoin? I feel
No
that
one is.
I honestly feel that's
No one
more of a
is.
Democrat thing.
It's all libertarian, I'll tell you that.
Think so?
And
It's more
yes,
libertarian?
it's completely cryptocurrencies are all libertarian. It's all voluntarious. It's all
Well,
non-aggression.
here's also the interesting part about cryptocurrency. Okay, so say the government goes, you know what, Patriot Act, let's regulate Bitcoin. It's illegal to have a Bitcoin if we don't know about it, right? That's what the regulation's going to be eventually, right? So like if you have a Bitcoin stored somewhere, you're going to have to admit to it, right? Well, you know what will happen is all the other cryptocurrencies will just start springing up left and right. And that's going to be the problem is once you regulate one, you're going to have to figure out how to regulate the other one and then the other one.
Sort of.
And it's never going to stop.
Sort of like the network of routers or the
Yeah.
independent networks
Just
that
gonna
can be
say,
created.
Full circle.
We get back
Wow.
to that.
Yeah, and that's something that I could see end up happening to where like you have like the three of us could have our own currency that just goes from his phone to my phone to your phone and never goes on an actual internet.
You know what a scary thing is? Independence. And I think that's what we're presented with all of this.
Yeah.
Real independence. Can we handle it? Regulation, everything we do to regulate is just a step away from saying we can actually handle these things. So, I mean, I hope
Yeah,
people-
it's getting more and more expensive for them to enforce their regulations just because one step ahead because of technology now.
And I actually feel that the cryptocurrency are the one thing that could keep us from economic crash with the dollar.
I actually was listening to Max Kaiser, RT. You know, RT did get their news credentials revoked this week.
Right.
But watching it, Max Kaiser said something about cryptocurrencies could add value back to gold and other things
Right.
like that. So, I mean, cryptocurrencies present the ability for us to quantify value
Yeah.
and other things. And I'm excited for where it can take us with pretty much everything. The blockchain is amazing. I'm starting to think of it like the internet, but a smaller condensed tool of
Right.
what the internet has done for us. If the internet is a toolbox, the blockchain is a hammer in that toolbox.
Yep.
It can do a lot of things for us.
I mean, for it to even get up to 10,000, that means it's not just really just this niche thing anymore to get up that high.
Oh, yeah.
So it's verging on mainstream. Once it does it finally become a currency rather than more of a speculative commodity like it is right now?
I think so. I think eventually
People will start paying with it.
Oh yeah, there are places you can actually go up, have it on your phone, it scans it from your phone, and you buy your latte. There's a lot of places like that now, and it's getting more and more every day.
I'm excited to see all this stuff happen. We're living on the edge of this whole thing unfolding.
Yep.
Hopefully, regulation stays or deregulation stays on our sides.
Yep. And I don't think it will at first, but I think that the fight back from it will eventually get it to a point where they can't regulate it anymore. And I think to kind of wrap it up in a nice little bow, I think the Federal Reserve is probably shaking in their extremely expensive boots.
Yeah, they're going to shout and stomp around like they did with alcohol prohibition, but eventually the people have spoken.
Yep.
It'll definitely change.
How many Bitcoins do you get for mining now? Because like a lot of cryptocurrencies, if you mine a currency, you get one. So if your computer's out there, and this is like every 30 seconds a new one's mined? Is that what it can't be?
I don't know so much about the mining.
3 minutes?
I'm not so sure about the mining.
Oh.
I did hear in the last week that there was Bitcoin Cash was the latest thing. So basically, there's a new way to exchange Bitcoin, from what I've been told. So I mean, yeah, it is scarce. Bitcoin and other cryptos are scarce. So with any currency or any exchange of value, scarcity is what's going to make it able to have value.
Yep.
So it's exciting. It really is. I think there's a 21 million cap on Bitcoin. 21 million Bitcoins can be created, I think. Something like that. Million.
Wow, there's only a cap.
There is a cap on how many Bitcoins.
Right.
Not only that, but there's other cryptos that can be made.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's endless.
That actually kind of somewhat, because we mentioned it, brings us to the hemp bill in Wisconsin.
Yeah. So the hemp bill. How many years has it been since you guys saw people growing hemp? We go a couple of years back and people were growing hemp, right? A couple of years.
I don't remember.
I don't remember it ever.
I don't know.
Unless you.
I remember Woody Harrelson, maybe.
The hemp suit he had.
Really? That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So Scott Walker signed the Hemp Bill 119 in this last week, and I think a lot of people are still sitting around like I am, just dumbfounded that it happened because I didn't think it was going to happen.
So it actually did pass.
It did. He
Wow.
he signed
How did I
that
miss
piece of
that?
paper.
How did I miss that?
Yes.
Awesome.
But there's a lot of regulations.
Yeah, you want me
in
to read
place.
some of these off here?
Yes.
Okay, so we have some regulations here. Somebody did some homework, Reese. And so we know the regulations behind what this hemp bill has. And we have GPS coordinates of farm.
Ouch.
I get that a little bit. You know, you want to know where it's grown because, you know, you can smoke hemp, right? Like,
Sure.
Yeah,
it makes sense.
You can get stoned off hemp. It's amazing.
Why not? GPS it.
Criminal history check. Ooh. So you have to get and you can't have a violation of the controlled substance law. Oh yeah, you can't have any violations of that. So basically, you can't have a ticket for smoking pot
Or paraphernalia.
or paraphernalia, even really.
Yes.
So you can't have a ticket for paraphernalia and grow hemp because the two are the same.
The
right?
best part. Let me address the very best part.
Oh, okay.
What is the THC content that can be acceptable?
Yes.
0.03.
Really?
Yes.
So
Really.
can you get stoned off that?
I don't know, but I think everyone's going to try. Everyone.
Well, now.
It's going to be
Right.
all the rage.
Oh my God, there's THC.
Let's
in
try
there.
that 0.03.
Oh, and of course, all sales are reported, but I kind of feel that's like kind of a duh. That was going to happen anyway. But
I've spent some time looking at the history of this. Being a candidate for the 45th here, that's a lot of our history is in growing hemp, among other crops. But up until World War II, we were a big producer of hemp crops. And it's kind of amazing if you were to try to imagine since 1939 that not even 0.03 THC has been criminalized. Just marijuana was then said to have been the same as hemp, and we're just going to criminalize it all. And that's been going on for over 50 years.
So what's the difference between hemp and marijuana?
The THC content, the actual
Are they
contents,
actually two different plants?
They are, as far as I know, male and female plant.
Oh, okay.
So one has a certain amount of content and potential for growth, and the other has a separate potential for growth. And
I'm assuming the marijuana is the female then.
Yes,
and the hemp
I do
is the
believe
male?
so. Yes.
Okay.
There's so many aspects of these plants that, when you look at the reasons that we criminalized in the first place in 1939 with the Harrison Act, I believe, if you look at that, it really looks like a witch hunt that just never ended.
Right.
It looks like a nightmare that started and never ended. Not only was it a nightmare, but it had severe social and financial costs that we're still living with.
Yep.
And I think a lot of the problems that we do face are with not only regulation of issues like this, but this issue alone is the one issue that I wish a lot of people will start looking at.
Right.
Anybody listening, I really recommend look at the history of hemp and the criminalization of it and how much it really presents harm to us.
So do you think it was criminalized for the reason a lot of people think it was criminalized is because of paper? Because hemp paper is cheaper and easier.
Well, that
to
would be a
make.
conspiracy, and we don't believe conspiracies. So, non-conspiratorial, I cannot point at anything,
Okay.
and that's the problem with hemp and cannabis and marijuana. All of it, it's kind of a silver bullet issue.
Right.
People want a better economy. People want more jobs. People want government to be more efficient and effective. Well, we could start by being honest and telling people maybe we did make a mistake. We need to correct this. We need to get things on track. There are so many things we could do. And we have this bill just passed now, just signed by one of our least favorable governors in Wisconsin history. Walker doesn't have a lot of fans unless you guys have ran into any lately.
Not really, no.
I don't run into any, and
Well,
I look for them.
Here's the good part, though, that there's a good chance that in this next election that we get a Democratic governor. So it makes you wonder if we'll legalize marijuana, just like Colorado and Washington. And I feel like I can see the slogans and the billboards now. Support Wisconsin, buy hemp. And I think, like, as a Wisconsinite, I would like to see us actually be the leading in the country in hemp production. That'd be a great boon for Wisconsin.
I honestly think this is one reason that voters should pay attention to their libertarian candidates here in Wisconsin, because, like you said, they're going to have the option to vote Democrat.
Yep.
There's a lot of Democrats coming out, especially for governor right now, that do support pretty much all legalization of marijuana and THC content. But if that were to happen, I don't think we would have the same results as if we were to have a libertarian governor like Phil Anderson.
Right.
I do think the differences are monumental, because the difference is allowing something to happen with excessive regulation versus allowing something to happen with minimal regulation. I think we kind of mentioned this, but where the Republicans on this issue are the people who proposed the latest hemp bill, but I don't see them keeping up on this one. And there's a lot of Democrats who are in favor, especially libertarians. This is going to be an issue where people are going to have to keep paying attention. It's going to be about, do you want more regulation or do you want less?
Yep.
And that's where libertarians, we're ahead of the wave on this.
Oh, yeah.
I hope people really pay attention to that, because we've supported this longer than any party. And I mean that in terms of we've been proactive against regulation for this. Whereas the other parties, not so much deregulation. They want to regulate it. They want to regulate it a lot.
Yeah, pretty much the only case for legalizing it is regulating it. And we're like, from a libertarian standpoint, that's one of the difficulties we have with a lot of different kinds of products and companies is government's already in so deep with it that it's difficult to say what regulation should go first, order of operations, all that stuff like we were talking about before. But with something like hemp, this is your blank slate product. You can introduce it to the marketplace devoid of regulation if you want.
It has the potential to be made into almost anything.
Yeah.
And that's what's crazy about hemp. You can make almost anything with it.
Yeah, it makes some crazy good stuff. And that's going to be nothing but, like I said, a boon for Wisconsin. And I hope that we embrace it. And
wouldn't it be great if we could introduce it without hobbling it right out of the gate? But
I do think focusing, if you look at the two parties, what do Democrats want? They want to address the environment.
Right.
Well, with the environment, we have a solution in hemp. And what do Republicans want? Well, they want You guys tell me. I don't know what they want in this,
I don't know
except for
anymore.
more money coming in their pockets.
I don't even know anymore.
I can't say I have a lot of Republican friends, so you'll have to excuse me on that.
Well, that's the thing is with this particular subject is the one where the
Libertarians
progressives tend to be more free market than the conservatives.
Yeah.
We're going to see, at least. We are going to see, because it's going to become an issue increasingly, and people are going to be faced with, well, do I like the regulation? People are going to have the chance to say, are we happy with this?
Yeah.
And with hemp, we've seen for over 50 years that it's been a disaster. It has been terrible, and we got to turn it around. It's one thing that I can't go a day anymore without thinking we need to change it instantly. People are poor because we have not had the right regulation in place for this. We've overregulated it. Not only are people poor, but that means people are not eating. People are without homes. People are looking for jobs,
And with
all because of
many
this.
things as you can use hemp for too, it's going to be really hard to oversaturate the market. So that's a lot of jobs.
Well, when you can offset the carbon footprint by growing this, any carbon issues, any global warming issues, you look at these crops, we have to grow them as often as we can. I mean, can you imagine hemp roads? Who's going to build them roads? Maybe some hemp roads. I don't know. We could grow so much hemp, we could do a lot of things. And you can look at other plants. I'm sure there's other plants that we've criminalized, but the benefits from this one plant alone, it's just amazing.
Well, have you guys seen the? I know it's not hemp, but it's a byproduct of TCH. You guys seen the video of the dog who had basically a permanent seizure? Like it couldn't stop shaking.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
And they gave it
The
hemp
CBD
oil,
the CBD,
yeah, and it stopped shaking. It was the saddest. I mean, just to see that poor puppy just shaking was just so sad, and to see that some stupid plant can make that stop. I mean, that's amazing to me, and that's all of these people that have these issues, that have epilepsy and some of these other diseases that can be cured from this.
Yes, there's so many solutions offered by
And
this.
if we want to get into conspiracies again, we could say, well, yeah, that hemp oil does help some things, but that would also mean a lot more expensive products already on the market would lose money.
Well, that's like Patrick Stewart, Captain Jean-Luc Picard, if you will, has, he's quite an older gentleman. He has arthritis in his hands, and he puts CBD oil, or CDP, PCP.
You got it. Yeah.
Whatever it is. He puts that stuff on his hands, and he says his arthritis goes away.
Yeah.
And that's all it takes
Yeah.
is he just puts it on his hands. He doesn't take it internally. He just puts it on. And I also heard, I don't know how true this is,
I didn't
but
even know it was a topical
medication.
medication.
As a person who has psoriasis, I've heard that it works as a topical solution for psoriasis too, and that can actually help it go away. I don't know how true that is or not because I can't test it because it's illegal. I would love to be able to go down to Walmart, buy me a bottle of this stuff and test it and see if it works. It may not work. It may not work for everybody, but it might work for some, and that's the important part.
Yeah. I'm to the point where I really want to ask almost everyone who has any kind of negative perception on this issue, what is your biggest fear? What is it that you're worried would happen with anything?
Well, they're worried that people will smoke pot.
Well, I want to hear if people are scared of that and what the result is. What's the result if people smoke it?
99%, I bet you, of people who are worried about people smoking pot aren't worried about people smoking pot. They're worried about people smoking pot and driving.
And if that's it, then we can talk about what we're going to do on that. But we are criminalizing.
You can't test it. You can't test pot right there on the spot like you can alcohol. Yes, but people still drive drunk even though you can test it. And people are going to drive stoned legally or illegally.
If I eat too many burritos, I can't drive.
Yeah.
That's true. So
There was that reminds me, I saw a story just yesterday on Facebook of a guy who has a rare disorder that everything he eats, his body turns the sugar of it into alcohol. Wow. And he was a truck driver and he was driving on the road and he crashed his truck. And they got him and they tested him and he was drunk. But he was drunk because of his disorder that he didn't know he had.
Oh wow.
So yeah, and it's such a rare disorder, and they still find him. He lost his license, he lost his job, and all this stuff for something that he couldn't control, and he had no idea what was happening. He just knew like he'd eat and he'd feel weird, and if he eats, he gets drunk. I mean, it sounds great,
That's
but every time, like, would suck.
Yeah, that's not good. Yeah, we face so many growing like health concerns. My youngest daughter has what's called a degenerative syndrome, and kids are being born increasingly with these problems, problems that have to do with their genetics. And for the most part, doctors have no idea what it's caused by. So we have problems that we don't know what they're caused by, and we also have no solutions. But there is something consistent. There's things like, hemp, which contains THC and CBD. It's been taken off the map from research and everything else. And it only seems like maybe there's a missing puzzle piece right in front of us. And hopefully we find out.
I feel like a lot of the people who tout CBD and marijuana as this miracle drug, like, oh, it cures everything. Well, that's probably not true. But we don't know what it cures.
No,
because no one can test it. The only things we see are videos on Facebook of people taking this stuff, and it seems to work in these videos, but we don't have any scientific stuff from it because nobody can test it. So to me, the first thing is get rid of the inability to test. Let every single person who wants to test it, and find out what it actually does.
Why in the hell would we want to limit our options?
Yeah.
My question is, how did we go in World War II from, using hemp crops for so many things as we did, whether it was paper, rope, any kind of goods that we were manufacturing with hemp crops? Why did we stop? And I know you guys had some conspiratorial options, but you got to understand, when you get into making legislation, conspiracies don't get you very far. Right. I don't think they ever really did. So you have to come up with logical arguments.
I honestly think sometimes conspiracies are real. And I think the idea that when they hire enough lobbyists to go to DC and talk to these people, then the people are like, oh, okay, well, I guess we'll do it.
There did seem to be a concerted effort to breed hysteria.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look at the movie Reefer Madness. That is just like, have you ever seen anybody smoke pot that acts like that ever?
And that's what I'm saying. I mean, it's pretty hard for me now to look back and see any problems, but I wonder how hard it was at the time for people to be convinced that this was a problem.
Yeah,
I mean, how do you cause such hysteria over something?
Well, it's because I don't think it was as widely used as it is today. It's kind of the.
I read that it was because we had a lot of Mexican immigrants coming in the country, and we used it.
Well, they were the big users of it, and that was the problem. And most Americans didn't use it. So and the minute you made it illegal, it became a fun thing for rebellious kids to do.
Well, it's too bad they didn't.
And now it's huge
under religious exemption. It's too bad they didn't claim it that way.
Yeah.
Maybe they should start a new religion.
Oh no, there's a pot religion. You didn't know that? There's a church out there that they can legally smoke pot in a state where it's not legal because it's a religious thing, and they actually go to church and smoke pot.
I'm not a big fan of. I'm not a religious person, but religions allow people to do whatever they want to do. That's a good religion.
All right. Well, we'll be right back after these messages.
Final segment, guys. Wrap it up real quick here.
All right, and we're done. Oh, not that quick. All right, so we're gonna bring up the Trump tax plan. I think is what they're calling it now. Just a Republican tax plan.
Republican tax plan. That's all I've heard.
Yeah. So it's a good tax plan.
It's a good thing.
Yeah.
When it passes, it'll be a good thing. End of story.
Yep. All right. Good job, everybody. No, I think in my opinion of any kind of tax cut is a good thing. I wish that they would cut taxes and offset that by cutting spending too. That'd be great.
Unfortunately, it seems to be more of a shift of the tax burden. They're going to be killing a lot of state tax deductions, married tax credit, all this kind of stuff is going to be going. And those cuts, by the way, only last like 10 years or something like that, and they will go away too if they're not renewed. So in the end, we could all be paying more.
So it is a situation where somebody could, because we were just talking about that during the break about how potentially in the future somebody could end up paying more than what they're paying now.
Oh yeah,
So what's the point of cutting them then?
because it favors certain people.
The rich?
It doesn't favor all business owners, just the ones that Trump is most likely to know.
I heard that,
like small business owners are gonna get the fuzzy end of the lollipop on this one.
I did see something like hotels and casinos or something like that got a cut, and it's like literally what he owns are getting a cut. Like the only reason he ran for president was to give himself a nice little tax cut.
Yeah, I mean there are people who could do well off it. I'm not gonna say it's like all super rich people.
What about broke?
Are going to
What about broke asses like me? Am I going to get a cut?
Tell me I'm getting a cut.
Yeah.
Broke asses, huh?
Even if I save $10 a year, I'll take it. Like that's enough of a tax.
Yeah, that's on page 458.
Like I said, some broke asses might be saving some money for 10 years, but they could end up paying more in the long run because of those standard deductions going away. If they don't renew those cuts, then you'll have nowhere to hide that money anymore when and if those cuts end.
This is sounding worse and worse as we're going along here.
Yeah, it's not great.
You know, it's these situations that makes you kind of feel for the Democrats, because like when they're like, oh, they're only out for the rich, and then they put out a bill like this, you're like, maybe they are only for the rich. And does trickle down economics work enough to offset this tax cut? Like, are they going to invest the money that's getting cut from taxes into more business?
The fact that there's a sunset clause on the cuts is probably the Democrats' fault, so they have no room to talk.
So they're the ones that are like potentially kind of screwing us in the end. Then Republicans were like, we're going to cut it and make it like this way, but now if in 10 years they don't vote to keep those tax cuts, then we're all screwed.
Oh, you know, whenever you hear the words bipartisan, grab your ankles.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, under the current environment, I can't imagine the Republican Party putting forward any kind of tax bill that the other party would be happy with. This is just more of a case for voting third party next time around, because people need a real human voice in there, not this partisan back and forth stuff. And it is, no matter who's trying really hard. And I know there's representatives on both sides. There's got to be some that really care, but I haven't seen them. And I've seen a lot of drama coming from this. And that's it.
And here's the thing: I'm not going to just bash Trump just to bash him, because there's some things I like that he cut some unnecessary spending in some areas. Problem is, he went and just started spending more in other areas. We didn't get anywhere.
Well, that's what the Republicans do, is they cut certain things and then they add it to other things. And
they cut military spending at all?
No,
I
they
mean,
added
the
to it.
thing, like the thing we're spending the most on, and the thing we could most stand to cut without any.
That's all I heard, is that they were not cutting military spending. So I was put off at that.
I heard he actually added to it.
Yes,
yeah, that's what I heard
too.
too. It was added to. They added.
That's a quick way to get Reese Wood not caring anymore.
And after all this talk he did about not getting caught up in all these foreign wars, all the time they said, stay out of Syria. Obama goes into Syria. Get out of Afghanistan. There's better ways to spend our money. I agree, Donald. Why didn't you?
Yeah.
But no, he made a big speech saying, "Oh, we're probably in Afghanistan for the foreseeable future now."
You know, and we covered this a while back on one of our things where we talked about North Korea, but I'm actually thinking that it's about a 70-30 that we go to war with Korea right now. North Korea.
South Korea was one of the big buys in the latest Bitcoin boom. It was South Korea and Japan.
Well, see, the issue is the fact that they just launched a new missile. I know this is kind of like off subject, but I kind of wanted to bring it up a little bit, because they launched a missile that actually went, if it would have survived reentry, could actually hit all of the U.S. So they're just shy of having a nuke that could actually hit the mainland U.S. And that is absolutely super scary. And we're doing the opposite of what we could do to ratchet down this issue. And I think honestly, what's going to happen is they're getting ready to launch another missile, and if they actually get ready to launch this missile, we might preemptively strike it, and then if they retaliate, we're at war. That's what I'm scared of.
Let's
actually
hope
happening.
not, because I can't even imagine what was the last venture over there. Last guy we completely removed. We were unsuccessful in Syria,
Yes.
but before that it was Gaddafi, right?
Yeah.
Was that our last
Yeah.
success?
If you call it a success.
Yes.
Success, yeah.
Well, I'm just
Successful mission.
I think that the Chinese might stay out of our way this time, and if they stay out of our way, I think it's going to be a terrible war if it actually happens. That's all I'm saying. Like
I usually
millions are gonna die.
don't buy into that it could possibly happen, but man, it doesn't sound good.
This is one of the ones that I think like
I'm hoping we can find a way to trade our way out of this.
Well, North Korea, remember what I said? Kim Jong-un was one of the, I believe, one of the biggest importers of U.S. goods when he was around. So, I mean, that's why I've kind of thought a lot of this is more than what we're being told by our U.S. media.
Do you think it's a play to spend more on the military?
Lift embargoes, maybe?
Yeah,
and
I
see
mean,
what
military spending is, you always got to have something driving that up. And what else do we got right now besides the stuff we've been in? We need new stuff, and North Korea's been a lot of it.
That's my fear, though, is that the people in the military-industrial complex are actually going to push a war.
We'll take it farther.
Because you can't make money on bombs you're not blowing up.
So I think they'll maybe get a little bit.
You don't think they're
more
making
than they
enough?
were pushing for, and
Well, here's the thing. North Korea has one of the biggest armies in the world and one of the best armed. So, and they have like so many pieces of artillery pointed and ready to go at Seoul right now that if we attack them, they can unleash in like a half hour more artillery strikes than there were in the entire like original Korean War. I mean, it's insane. So like so many people are going to die if we do this, and I have a feeling that we're going to do this, that Trump is going to be like, oh well, I'm going to show how tough I am and I'm going to bomb North Korea, and the minute you do that, it's a retaliation. They won't stop, because they think the leaders are probably like, we can't win, but the actual soldiers are like, oh, we'll beat the US because of the propaganda.
If that's true, the opportunity for peaceful solutions have never been better than right now then. And let's hope that that's not true, but, you know, for everybody who does worry about things.
Trust me, I'm pushing for peace. Like that's,
Yes.
I want, because I feel like if we could get to a point where we have world peace, where like 90% of the world is not at war, which
Just
we're really
attempting
close to
to
that,
make peaceful
right?
efforts,
Yeah,
yeah.
we're really close to that. Could you imagine what we could do with the money that we're spending on the military right now? We could go to Mars. We could like have a base on the moon. I mean, there's all kinds of cool crap we can do with that money.
We could make technology that doesn't hurt us.
Yes, exactly. Could you imagine the money they can invest in technology? The government itself, like, okay, forget all the libertarian stuff. If the government actually invested that money into technology, how great it would be. But they won't do that. They won't cut our taxes and give our money back, which is what led us to this, because they need that money for the military-industrial complex. And that's the problem.
Ugh.
I mean,
Right?
It's true. TrueDat.com.
yeah, if we did stop throwing our weight around, how else are we gonna, prop up our fake money?
That also is very true. Our petrodollar, as it's called, we have to defend our petrodollar to the death, because otherwise our country's gone.
I'll tell you guys, I've never had more reasons to be optimistic, and for that reason, when you say there could be a reason to have a little worry, I especially get worried because there's never been more opportunities in front of us. Like I said about hemp, like I say about cryptos, even if those are failed, if those fail, we still live in a time where there's so many opportunities, and I hope everybody listening agrees with that. But we have so many real opportunities on the horizon.
I just had an idea. What do you guys think of this? What if we had some American hackers who got together and worked their way into hacking North Korean computers, home computers, those few people in North Korea that have home computers, and hacked their TV stations and hacked all these communications, and said, hey, screw our government, screw the U.S. government, they're assholes, so's your government, I'm a human, you're a human, we're cool, I'm cool with you, you be cool with me. Could you imagine if we could get a communication, a one-on-one with the average North Korean person. They don't want to go to war with us. You know, they don't want to kill people. They don't want to die. They want to live their lives like we want to live our lives. But they're so scared of us, and we're so scared of them because of our stupid government. So if we could somehow get on a one-on-one communication with them, we could literally change their minds, and by changing their minds, change ours. And then all of a sudden, our governments are like, go to war, and we're like, nah, we're good. We're friends with them. I'm not going to bomb my friend.
Wouldn't it be great to think that our government was actually a small proportion of what the people are? Because that what you said is true. Right now, our government pretty much reflects who we are versus the people reflecting who we are, and that's a huge change that needs to happen.
I think that's what the North Koreans don't understand is the average American doesn't want to go to war with them. Like the average American just wants to live their lives, you know, have their children, be happy, and die.
Peace and prosperity.
Yes.
Like 90% of people, at least 90% of people, have just a shade of libertarian in them.
Right.
Because they want to tell, who hasn't wanted to tell somebody in government, screw you, you don't speak for me.
Yeah. And I honestly think, like, how cool would that be if we could actually do that? Somehow get on the internet and communicate with these people and change the entire mindset of the North Koreans, change our mindset on them, and then actually when our countries are like, let's go to war, our soldiers are just like, nah, we're cool.
They'd revoke our news credentials if we tried to do that.
Wait, we have news credentials? Oh my God, I'm going to the next.
Now I got that speech from the end of Rocky IV in my head. And if you can change, and I can change, then we can all change. Adrian!
Nice.
What's Ivan Drago? I must break you.
I must break you. It's a great line. That's awesome. All right, everyone. I have a feeling that's the end of the show, unless you guys have something you guys want to bring up and talk about.
Hey, I think
we got another hour.
I got Dolph Lundgren in. That's all I was waiting for. Really, I was going to leave as soon as I found
wow,
the way.
really? You just sat here this entire time when we're like, oh, good conversation. Dolph Lundgren.
Yeah, I could tell. I didn't know that's what it was, but now.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Retrospect
I saw that
was
too.
all
Yeah,
Dolph.
Right. Oh, that's cool.
Now it can be told.
He dies. I must break you.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, other dudes who didn't shave today, welcome to Muh Radio.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to Muh Radio. My name's Steve.
And I'm Chris.
Reese Wood.
And my question is, Chris, what about women that didn't shave today?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, love them stubbly legs.
Right? I mean, what? Oh, okay. Anyway.
I can finish my carpentry projects with their legs.
Oh, you sand off the edges real nice?
Yeah.
Yeah. I usually do that. I take a board and hold it up to my beard and, give it a nice little... No?
Actually, you and me, Reese, we just look kind of hungover. Steve looks full Viking.
Yeah. Yeah, I decided not to shave at all, and I'll go back to professional Monday morning.